Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Moohead Radio special. And yeah, usually we would be on the air. I'm trying to move the time around because we do some things on Fridays that are socially oriented here in Northeast Ohio, and Rox and I are out and about. And if I'm doing the show at 6 o'clock, it ruins the opportunity really to go out, have dinner, and then sing karaoke or whatever it is that we're doing. And I figure these shows are all recorded anyway and archived, and people are watching them. So, hence the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Uh, we're getting on top of a game tomorrow. So, this serves as a pregame show in one respect. And tomorrow, with the game being at 1 o'clock, I will be doing a halftime show and a post game show. So this will be my dress rehearsal for the regular season. And then we'll have to wait a couple weeks before we get into the meat of the season. Part of what's going on with the Cleveland Browns is well worth talking about right now. It's more than probably what we thought there would be to talk about. There are many different types of programs, okay? And there are reporters that break stories, all right? There are sites that break news. There are others that do commentary. This would be one of those types of programs. Or people who are really statistically involved, and there would be that kind of program. Yeah, there's something for everybody in the world of podcasting. What really gets me is when sites get into this prognostication thing, and every season is different, no matter how it begins, how it starts out, how it ends. Every season is completely different, and I'm not making fun of this particular site, which is dogpounddaily.com. I'm sure really good people there, but it's one of the reasons why predictions are not always the most useful things. I predict that this is going to happen. And the article says 4 bold predictions for Cleveland Browns in preseason week 4 versus Chiefs. And the number one was Josh Dobbs holds on to the quarterback 2 position. And of course, we know that this obviously was written on August the 22nd. And that's a bold prediction, all right. And, talking about Josh Dobbs at this point, the last program that I delivered, I expressed disappointment that Josh Dobbs would be the second string quarterback when I thought DTR had earned the right. And there are lots of other things about the whole DTR Josh Dobbs thing that I think I went over pretty well in the last podcast. It's not just about now, it's about upside. You just don't know who's going to get hurt and who is the logical person to back up Deshaun Watson as far as certain types of game skills. Joshua Dobbs is not a bad quarterback, and I never meant to suggest that that was the case, but I don't think that he is a second string quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, given the set of circumstances with Deshaun Watson and that last year they got rid of him basically, and that Jacoby Brissett was far better than Joshua Dobbs. It tells me we needed an upgrade because there's a great likelihood that the second string quarterback is going to play at some point during the season. Joshua Dobbs is going to get an opportunity in St. Louis because of an injury to Kyler Murray. And this is the kind of thing that nobody knows the depths of the injury, but now speculation is that he's going to be put on the physically unable to perform list, which would make Kyler Murray unable to play or not allowed to play for the first 4 weeks of the season. And you're going into that season with Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback. in St. Louis, and that is Arizona. I'm sorry, I'm showing my age. Uh, and that's not a good thing. Colt McCoy was uh, has had so many concussions and so many injuries that the Cardinals needed to do something. So they did, and it didn't cost them. It cost them two rungs up on the draft, with the Browns snagging a fifth and them getting a quarterback in a seventh. Good luck to Joshua Dobbs. Is he better than Colt McCoy? Uh, I don't think much of Colt McCoy, because Colt McCoy is not got a strong arm. And we know that he's got experience, but he's not had experience as a winning quarterback in the league. And the season could be over by the time that Kyler Murray gets back. And Kyler Murray's not the kind of quarterback who's going to rip off 8 consecutive wins. Joshua Dobbs is healthier than Colt McCoy. And if Joshua Dobbs cannot surpass Colt McCoy as a starting quarterback in a situation like this, then I think everybody feels the way I felt on the last podcast, that he's not a second string quarterback at all. I mean, this is the greatest opportunity that Josh Dobbs could have at this point, was to be able to Jacoby Brissett his way in and start a number of games to at least show the league what he's capable of doing if he were given the reins for a period of time. The Browns can't afford to do that. Maybe the Cardinals can, because they're going nowhere this year. But the Browns have to turn around last season. And if they don't, there's going to be hell to pay. So right off the bat, when somebody starts with bold predictions, that's not something that you're going to really get. I'm going to tell you what I would do if I were in charge of the team. And that would have been, as you know, to put DTR at the number 2 slot. Now, with that said, there are other people who are asking me questions too, like, well, what do you do with Cade York? And, we freed up all of this money, $38 million worth of cap space, by redoing Batonio's and Myles Garrett's deals, and we have an opportunity, to get somebody who might be able to be better than Cade York. And to me, no, you're not going to utilize. I mean, it's bad enough you used your draft and a high draft pick at that for a kicker, for somebody who's having the kind of troubles that Cade York is having. That's bad enough. But to turn around and make it worse by trading, that would be a huge mistake. Somebody will be on the cut wire, and you'll have an opportunity to get some kind of a veteran kicker if that's what you want to do. But I got to be honest with you. You're in so deep with Cade York at this point that he is going to be your starting kicker, I believe. And that I'm not even going to argue with the whole circumstance, because anybody who comes in, you don't know what you're getting anyway. And it was pointed out to me that Mason Crosby, when Bohorquez was his holder, dropped to 75% of his field goals completed, and that the problem might be Bohorquez, the holder. But if you look at Mason Crosby's career, he had a couple of years where he hit 90% of his kicks and was very, very solid. But his overall was like 85 career. And Phil Dawson was career 83. Cade York was about 75 last year. And that's not going to cut it, because obviously there's some problem with Cade York as far as mentally what's going on. And it was readily apparent with the Eagles. The other thing that's a little bit scary is that he's got this great streak going in practice, but when he's going under the lights in front of in the real game, he's really showing just all kinds of problems. And they mental problems have physical manifestations. And I think, I'm not going to sit here and rip Cade York, but the fact of the matter is, it's such a mental gig to sit on the sidelines and to have to come in with the game on the line, and your head's either in the right place or it's not. You're going to start out with Cade York, but it's going to be a short leash if it doesn't go real well. And in close games, if the defense can keep games close this year, it could be a do or die for the Cleveland Browns because, we teeter totter here between, some people who are, some teams that are guaranteed to make it. And we're one of those teams that's really on a big bubble that a lot of teams can say they're on that same bubble. So you're not going to get a whole lot of prognostications from me. That's not what I'm good at. The Joshua Dobbs thing has an interest to me altogether different than whether DTR earned it, whether he didn't, whether Joshua Dobbs should have been or shouldn't have been. The thing that surprises me is that Mary Kay Cabbagehead comes out on Twitter and says that, he is the guy, Joshua Dobbs has been named the number 2 quarterback by Kevin Stefanski. And I don't know why I'm getting a phone call now, but not anymore. So the whole Joshua Dobbs thing, Mary Kay Cabot was jumping all over it and saying, and put up a video clip of Kevin Stefanski talking about the quarterback room, and it said nothing about Joshua Dobbs being named as the number 2 quarterback. I thought that's a weird video clip to attach to a tweet. Why? And then literally a matter of a couple hours later, he's been traded. And then, of course, you have the amazing Mary Kay Cabbagehead, who comes back and then says, confirmed he's been traded. Well, that isn't, we know that she's not on top of the job, okay? She is in the Hall of Fame, but in the Greater Cleveland Hall of Fame, fucking Vonda Ward is in there too. And don't get me started, because I'm a boxing historian. Don't get me started about Vonda Ward. She was a wonderful female basketball player at the University of Toledo, but she held her head up like this when she was boxing, and she got knocked out cold in one of the most brutal women's knockouts in women's boxing history. And, to make a Hall of Fame, it just depends on how long you've been around and all of that kind of stuff, what gender you are, whatever. And I'm not moved by anything Mary Kay Cabot says, does. The thing that concerns me is when the head coach says something and 2 hours later, it turns out to be not true. Somebody did something above Kevin Stefanski's head. Now, if I am attuned to business, which I think that I am, that's an indication of something that's not very good if you're Kevin Stefanski. You would think that if something like that was going to go down, that the head coach would be made aware of it. Or if it were imminent, that he could just fluff his way around the question. And that's what I thought was the case based upon the video that was in Mary Kay Cabbagehead's tweet. Because he was just talking in general about how happy he was with the quarterback room. And he never actually came out and said he is the number 2 quarterback. Well, Cleveland.com was forced to turn around and transcript what Stefanski had said, which made it easier for me to understand that he did, in fact, say that Joshua Dobbs is the number 2 quarterback. And then 2 hours later, the trade goes down. I would say that Kevin Stefanski is out of the loop. And his mediocrity, his self-confessed mediocrity 3 years into a head coaching position, certainly cannot speak well for Kevin Stefanski. And what I will tell you is this. If the defense comes out, starts playing some really decent football for Jim Schwartz, and the offense continues to have questionable calls and a concept that just crowds the field. If this continues, this will be Kevin Stefanski's last year. And I know I don't make predictions, but business is business. And when the worm turns, the worm turns. And that's something that a head coach should never have been oblivious of. It's just not possible. It's and the real question is, we've put money into receivers, we put money into the quarterback, and allegedly Deshaun Watson will be able to audibilize and change out of some of those horrible plays. We'll see if that happens. The issue, Ken, is not a fifth rounder, and I imagine you're being somewhat sarcastic. That you would get a fifth rounder for Joshua Dobbs is actually good. When you look at what other, non-playing quarterbacks would receive. So a fifth rounder, you could actually get a player or a guy who can really participate, or a fifth rounder, you could get a backup quarterback, Ken, like DTR. It's possible. And we'll see how that plays out. But immediately when I see the head coach say something that lets me know that he was not in on a final decision and not consulted or told about, if he were told by the front office, he would have just fluffed the question, but he didn't. He answered the question, and somebody has some splaining to do, because the front office should never leave somebody in that situation. And even though Kevin Stefanski is not my favorite head coach, under no circumstances should he be left in front of the press without information. That's just a real misstep. We have a game coming up tomorrow, and these games are important to players, certain players. The fans tend to get all riled up about these games for no apparent reason, because they don't show us anything but, the real pure vanilla offensive scheme. Deshaun Watson, 20 to 25 snaps, they're saying, then DTR, and then Mond, who we knew was Stefanski's favorite. So that didn't surprise me one bit that he would still stick around. And as a third-string quarterback, you're not going to have anybody in the league who's particularly sharp. That much I do know. But we have a game coming up. And when a game is coming up, it's like there are players who have to state their case. And I know that Diabate, kid out of Utah, has a lot to prove. And he has been playing very active football during the preseason. And we know that we can't seem to find good linebackers. And we know that Jim Schwartz likes certain types of linebackers. And the question is, will Mohamed Diabate have a good game and make this roster? And up to this point, the answer would be yes. But, there's so much that the Browns still need, that the waiver wire is going to come up so fast with so many players on it. And they've got people already pre-selected that it is hard for young players, even though they show well in the preseason. It's hard for them to make the roster. The thing about Diabate is that he expected to be drafted. He wasn't drafted at all. He had a really good season at Utah. He was a 3-year Florida guy. And when the Dan Mullen was fired during 2021, and you know that Florida's had more than its fair share of football problems recently, he went to Utah. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. So he's more another, some of this is changing in the NFL. The difference between safeties and linebackers is diminishing. But at 6'4", 225, He had 5 sacks at Utah, 13.5 tackles overall, and he missed 2 games with the torn meniscus that was supposed to keep him out 6 games. He's a tough guy, wants to play. He was not invited to the combine, and that's what really that's damning when you're a guy who's coming out of Utah for a season. That's real damning. This is players find a way to play their way into the league very often, and sometimes it comes with the second or third teams that they really try out for. And he gets his opportunity, and he's going to be playing a lot of downs on Saturday at 1:00. Again, the Browns have until 4 p.m. on Tuesday to make their initial roster available, and Diabate is going to run through brick walls if he has to try to get the job done. But I would say that up to this point, he's been a very visible player and is coming on strong, and it's yeah, Francisco Franco is still dead. Hall of Fame. This is what constitutes a Hall of Fame reporter. It just it's like, no. The one thing we can say about Diabate, he has played hard, and that's what I will say about him. And there are no predictions because of what comes up on the waiver wire. It depends what the team needs for depth. That's more important. Tony the Calf, why don't you hop into the studio, my man? It's been a while. If your stuff is working, I don't mean that stuff, your camera and microphone. Everyone has an open invitation right into the studio. All you have to do is check out the YouTube video and write the description. It will tell you the link to get into Mr. Moohead's studio, and you'll get beamed right in, just like Star Trek shit. I was already explaining this, that there really wasn't. Tony, you're working. Where are you working at, buddy? Oh man. It's not a fiasco with Kellen Mond. The fiasco is that the front office didn't tell Kevin Stefanski what was going on, and so he misspoke himself. I mean, they put him on a waiver and then pulled him off again when the trade became available. So this was a last minute decision that was made by the organization, so last minute that they didn't even bother telling the head coach about it. Oh, that's right. The service manager at a Ford dealership. Woohoo. Yeah, that's good. Good for you. So I cheer guys on like Diabate because the next story I'm going to tell you bothers me tremendously. It's another Kevin Stefanski story, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but DTR has played very well, very enthusiastically, and has made a couple of blocks during the course of the preseason that maybe he'll learn as he gets older that he does not need to make, because if he's the second string quarterback, he's the only thing that separates us from Kellen Mond, and we don't want that. Take my word for that. We don't want that. But Kevin Stefanski was very verbal in chastising DTR for not the great blocks that he made to get a touchdown 2 games ago, or another block on a run by Demetric Felton. But the second block on that play, which was a late, actually, it was a blind side block, is what they refer to it now in the NFL, and a penalty that goes with it. And Stefanski was just, we can't allow this to happen. And I told him that that's no good. And I know that he's excited. He wants to play. And you know something? Why in the fuck are we apologizing for being physical? Do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens are going to get chastised by their coaches for hitting a guy late or hitting a guy blindside. Why are we always the nice guys? Why can't we go out and take someone's head off? It's just that kind of game. Football lives, dies, breathes, eats, and drinks violence. That's the bottom line. And when a kid does something enthusiastically and parks a guy on his ass on the sideline and blindsides him, good for him. I want to see more of it because we're going to see it for sure. I mean, when we go up against Tomlin and we go up against the Ravens, they're going to have no problem hitting people late. You're going to see how often they hit Deshaun Watson late. You won't believe how much they're going to hit Nick Chubb late. You're going to see them do every dirty thing in the book because it's not like they have an automatic trot into the playoffs. But this notion that, we have to be smart, we have to be disciplined, go back to the Ivy League. You know what this is? It's intimidation. Do you know how many fights Sonny Liston won by staring at his opponent and turning him into melted butter? Or that George Foreman scared the shit out of just by a look? Intimidation always comes down in physical sports. And football is probably like the greatest example of a physical sport. You got 11 men on each side of a line of scrimmage, and each of them is taking another guy on, and it's guys in the secondary trying to convince receivers that they better not take that extra step for that pass because they're going to get leveled if they try to catch that pass. There's a price to be paid for every damn thing in football. Yet we don't make anybody pay. And Crembley Q is asking about the will-o'-the-wisp, Willie Pep. Willie Pep never intimidated anybody. Willie Pep just dodged people. Seriously. Hey, Hammer Time. How you doing, buddy?
I'm not on mute. Good. I'm doing good.
Now you are. Just a second ago, you weren't sure you were on the air.
I know. This is my last Friday before I'm supposed to go back to work. So,
oh, good, perfect timing. And Ken, you're right. As brutal as it sounds, and and believe me, I don't like cheap shot artists, and I've made this clear from time immemorial of doing post-game shows where we came off playing the Steelers, and when James Harrison would do what he did, we put up with this year after year after year, going all the way back to the Steelers, and just laying out Brian Sipe, with late hits, and Jack Lambert, all of that. And the Browns, when they were a playoff team, in Lambert's final game, they took him off the field and circled him and kicked him. They stomped him, literally stomped him into the ground. They put a circle around him and were kicking him. And it's like, something? Good for them, because Jack Lambert was a filthy player. And if that's what gets you into the Hall of Fame, then you better be willing to match it, because if not, you're going to get pushed around. And why you would criticize DTR for making that blindside block when he had done everything so well, and you took time out of a press conference to dwell on that, tells me everything I need to know about Kevin Stefanski. He is not the right man for this job. And if you see an improvement in the Cleveland Browns defense, take a good long look at Jim Schwartz. Take a good long look at that guy. And you tell me that he's not the hardened son of a bitch from years and years and years of working with defensive players, and that he understands what it takes to be physical. Now, I'm not going to tell you he's a great head coach, because I'd be lying to you. It's a different skill set. But the message you impart to players is that it isn't that, I remember, and I'm digressing. When I sold my radio station in Flint, Michigan, people who bought it, we had to do a meeting because the money was going to come down and all that. So they were introducing themselves to our former staff. And they said, the thing is, and they were talking about salespeople, the thing is, it isn't really working harder, it's working smarter. And if I hear that one more time, I want to fucking break somebody's arms. I mean, and I'm the former owner at this point, and I'm waiting for a check to come right down off the printer for selling this property. And I didn't give a shit. I said, you know something? You can be as smart as you want to be, but if you don't make any fucking sales calls, you're not going to make any sales. Elbow grease. It's the ability to go out and make one more call, one more call, one more call. It's persistence. That's what it is in sales. It's accepting rejection and it's persistence. In football, it's not always being the second guy who gets caught retaliating after somebody gives you a cheap shot. Hey, you got to lead sometimes too. This is not a counter-punching league. So I just never appreciated Kevin Stefanski with his work smarter, not harder kind of attitude, because there's no place for it in a sport like this. The thing is, you've got to keep your head about you. But sometimes keeping your head about you is getting your players around you fired up by drilling somebody. That's the fact.
I think you said it there. There's a time and a place, right? That's unsportsmanlike penalty, or in my sport that I officiate, a yellow card. You don't do it when it's their last drive and they need a few yards. You do it at an earlier spot in the game where it kind of makes them think about it the next time they put their hands out to catch a ball over the middle. You're not going to do something blatantly cheating, but if you ain't cheating, you're not trying. And if they don't call it, it's not illegal, right? That's where you're at. And you'll keep doing it until somebody stops you from doing that. Just like offensive linemen and all the rule changes they've gotten to the point where, they're going to keep their arms in between the shoulders of the players. But, darn well, there's some plays where it gets a little further out. They get a little hook or a little whatever. And, that remember hearing the stories about Conrad Dobler and all the nasty stuff that guy used to do. Oh my gosh.
This is not a game of pristine manners. All right. And, and I don't know what life was like for him or wherever the fuck he played at Penn or wherever the hell he was in the Ivy League. This is a completely different situation. The question from Ken is, does Stefanski hate field goals or just Cade York? And it's an interesting question because there have been so many opportunities that we've had to kick field goals while Cade York was on the team before he started having all these problems. And Stefanski would run out his goddamn Statue of Liberty 4th down play and screw the team over and leave the 3 points off the board. And that doesn't exactly make Cade York a very confident kicker. I would say there's a 50% chance that part of the problem that Cade York is having is because of Kevin Stefanski. And that's what my belief is. Because what else is there besides belief when you're in a strictly mental situation? If you're ready to go out there and kick the field goal and you keep getting bypassed by the head coach and you see the ridiculous play call that took that opportunity away and took 3 points off the board, what everyone's saying, which is the truth, is that if you don't have a good field goal kicker, it's going to cost you 1 or 2 games. during the course of a season. It's just a fact. I would agree. But what happens when you keep skipping him? When you have an opportunity for a 44-yard field goal and instead you decide to go for it and you call some cockamamie gadget play. Is that supposed to help the team's morale, the kicker's morale? So that's what I suspect is part of the problem. And I would go as far as saying that it's Stefanski will continue to be, it will become more and more obvious. And I don't make prognostications of how many games the Browns will win, but I have very little confidence as long as Kevin Stefanski's the guy on the field. He just doesn't look like the right guy. So, for what it's worth. Then the question comes out about David Bell. This is a player who is still well up in the race to make the final roster. And by all accounts, he's a hard worker. He's diligent. He learns. He does what he's supposed to do. But he's slow and he's small. Now, is work ethic more important than ability? Than raw materials? The fact that Anthony Schwartz has been here for so long because of one attribute, one silly attribute. I mean, speed is nothing if you can't run a pattern or catch a ball. David Bell can catch anything, and he got great hands, and he runs precise patterns. He just doesn't get in and out of them as quickly as the mainline top-notch receivers in the NFL. So David Bell isn't bothered by the competition that he's having thrown at him. Schwartz will not be on the team this year. He will not be on the roster. We know that. And if you didn't hear, because it's very quiet, do you know that he has a hamstring injury again, Hammer Time?
Schwartz?
Yep.
Oh, well, that just kind of, the only thing that might do for him is gives him an injury settlement or puts him on IR or something. I mean, but why? What's the point when you just don't have any reason to do it?
He hasn't practiced the last two practices because of a hamstring. And this guy hasn't done anything.
And your big attribute is being fast, and you can't run right now.
He can't catch. He can't run he's a concussion waiting to happen. He is a soft tissue injury waiting to happen. He's a track and field guy. And you know something? You know, Ronaldo Nehemiah, and you can go through, you know, we're not going to talk about Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes was an exception.
Bob Hayes is the exception to the rule, but yeah. But definitely Skeets was definitely one of those folks that, hey, we're going to take a chance and see if we can make a football player out of him. And you know, and there's other guys that are like that out there too, that they've kind of gone out there. But what has happened with all of them? None of them have really become football players. And if they are, they're extraordinarily one-dimensional. And you know, so what they've tried to do with Schwartz is utilize his speed on end arounds and running plays and pitches and bubble screens and stuff like that. But he's not big enough to get past anybody. He's down on the first contact, and then he fumbles or doesn't even catch the ball to begin with.
Well, so, and even his catches, do you notice they're not clean?
No. Yeah.
He's always moving the ball around.
You see that with Bell, where he makes his hands are just so good.
And his hands are in the right position, you know?
It's just that the difference between being a starter and being a backup and being a practice squad player and working at the sit-go is tenths of a second, hundredths of a second. And, you know, that's the thing. But there are guys that have never been considered really fast that have lasted a long time just because they're wily, you know. And Bell just isn't going to – I don't know that he's going to get enough touches. Have you heard anything more on what's going on with Elijah Moore's post-concussive status?
They're saying that he might. I mean, he might even play a couple of downs in the game tomorrow, but I don't see that being the case. He'll be ready for week one. That's the bottom line with
That's
Elijah
more
Moore.
important. Yeah, I mean, if he's practicing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but what happened to him, the arm injury, if you will, it turned out to be not that serious a thing. So all word that I've gotten out of this is that it's not a big deal. And I think that he can be, if you want a guy who can run a good pattern and has good feet, you've got Amari Cooper and you've got Elijah Moore. Those two guys have faster feet than David Bell. So, what would David Bell add to this roster that is needed?
I don't know. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones that can do that same kind of thing he does as well,
and with bigger size.
right?
He's not quick either. DPJ is, I think, I guess the speed on him was somewhere in the range. His 40, I want to say, was about 4.55.
It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. Definitely wasn't Schwartz speed.
No,
but it's not. Yeah, but it's not a 4.7 lineman kind of guy either.
But he's not a guy.
Intriguing, I think, is Tillman. I think that's the guy that, to me, just because he's so tall, and he's a big target. He's got some speed. He's got some hands.
Yep.
He's the guy that's going to be intriguing. And as they go down the line, that's the other thing too. NFL is a marathon. First off, the Browns have 4 preseason games, right? Most other teams have 3. So obviously having bodies in camp was a big thing. And that's part of the reason why they left this cut down of 90 to 53 till the very end, so that they would have people in camp. I mean, that was the thing. And when they release everybody, there's going to be some folks out there. But people get hurt. Nobody plays a whole season anymore. It just doesn't happen. So, you got to have some people on your roster that can contribute down the line. And, who knows?
Well, Watkins is a guy who's looked fantastic during the preseason and obviously can run a pattern and has good hands. And I don't know what Watkins' speed is, but we have, some replication as far as, the thing with David Bell, he catches the ball and hits the ground. There's no yard after catch whatsoever. And the thing with DPJ is he's usually guys right on his hip, and he uses his body positioning and size to get the ball, and he's got a nice pair of hands. We don't have the field breaker that we need, and Tyreek Hill's an overworked name, but somebody that you just can't take your eye off of. We don't have somebody like that, and I just don't. I see a lot.
The internet has come through for us. Austin Watkins 40 dash was a 4.53.
See,
at the combine he ran a 4.56. Obviously, that was 4 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, he's in that same kind of DPJ kind of thing, and
and what was David Bell's? David Bell, as I recall, ran like a 4.6 and a 4.7 in his 2 runs.
Well, let's look that up.
I remember saying, because it was a real disappointment, but I'm almost sure he ran a 4.64, something that was really suboptimal.
4.65.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty good, boss. That's why you're the host.
Well, I mean, things that jump out, and when I see something, I can remember it.
But here
the problem is if I don't see it.
Here you go. Cooper Kupp ran a 4.62, and I would say Cooper Kupp is one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league.
Yeah.
So
it comes down to a number of things. It comes down to who surrounds Cooper Kupp. What scheme is he playing in as far as to take advantage of his skills? And, if he's really good at operating in the middle of the field, which we know he is, and he runs great patterns. That's one thing. But we have a lot of replication here. And David Bell has really good hands, but I've yet to see him get down the field like Austin Watkins has.
Yeah.
They both play the same position.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4.48. Mari Cooper, 4.42.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's significant. That is separation from defensive backs.
Yep. And it's also the question then is a matter of the first step. It's the art. It's first step off the line, evasiveness, getting off the line of scrimmage. And then you have the plant, the change of direction, how fast you can change direction. And that's another way that you can get separation instead of just flat out speed. That's the way David Bell has to do it. It's the way that most, guys who run 4.5s in the NFL, 4.55s, have to do it. I just think that we're trying to choose amongst a bunch of guys who have similar, skill sets. I think David Bell's going to make the roster and Austin Watkins isn't, simply because the draft position and because Austin Watkins has been playing, USFL football.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing for the Birmingham Stallions,
To kind of superimpose all those together, Elijah Moore's 40 was a 4.35.
Right.
A full tenth of a second faster than the two fastest guys we got out there.
And the thing about him, though, is with the injuries that he's had, the question is whether he can still run that kind of. From what I've seen, he's pretty damn quick. The problem with him is it looks like he's held together by paper clips. I'm afraid, if it's Greyhound syndrome, if it's again. There are wide receivers who can't get out of their own way because of soft tissue injuries and things that happen to them because of physicality in the league. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But, I'm thinking that Bell's going to make the roster and that Watkins is not. I think they're going to try to scramble and get Watkins on the practice squad if they can. And maybe teams will ignore him as well because, he hasn't been in the NFL. That's entirely possible.
And there's like I said, there's going to be so many people coming on the wire here. You're talking 37 people before they start putting people on practice squads from each team that are going to be released. That's a ton of players out there. So there's going to be some folks out there that are somebody maybe has their heart set on somebody. They're not quite there yet. There's something they want to work with them on, a couple of things, and then they just get a chance to do something. So, I mean, who knows? But it's going to be interesting. I think the cut down day, I think this year probably because of the new format, it's going to be a lot different than it had been. So
it's going to change. It's going to change the way everything goes down. That's really not a bad comment. From Amsterdam, we've had guys who fit the general description year after year after year. And it was Hollywood Higgins that you're referring to. And Higgins was a guy who could get open, but I think his work ethic was, I don't know whatever happened. Why don't we look up whatever happened to Higgins?
Well, Higgins he signed with Tennessee.
Are you sure? Was he with the Panthers? Was he with the Panthers?
He was with Tennessee, but
okay.
It won't take long.
Yeah. So again, we've had a lot of guys that fit this description. We just haven't had any game breakers, and that kind of hurts. As far as the Browns running back situation, Jerome Ford is not healthy yet, and we don't really have a backup. John Kelly Jr. has done nothing at 3.8 yards per carry to even ignite any interest as far as a running back. It looks like Demetric Felton by default is going to be the backup running back, which is also going to change play calling and scheme for games. it's David Bell, by the way. I'm not comparing him to Higgins as far as work ethic. David Bell has very strong work ethic. But again, the game has just become so athletic and so much timing.
Yeah, played 3 games for Carolina last year, didn't catch a single ball, and doesn't seem to be on anyone's roster this year.
And that's something.
There you
And
go.
it didn't work hard enough. And, but it's, and that's what people would say about Austin Watkins. They would say, well, he looks great playing against second, third, fourth string guys. But, with the elite, what kind of a impact would he make? And I guess you never know until you give somebody a try. And the same thing is true with David Bell. We've seen David Bell, and I think we know what he is, but it's better than Anthony Schwartz because he catches the ball. But there's way too many 6-yard receptions and then hits the ground. There's never anything after the catch, and there's no separation between he and the defensive backs. Part of that problem is the scheme of the Browns, as teams have just shortened the field on them and just crunched down on a 15-yard zone against Kevin Stefanski's scheme. But,
that's what people have been saying about DTR too, is the fact that the first 2 games he's out there against the third stringers, and yeah, he looked great against third stringers. And then the next game he gets to play against the second stringers, and once again he held his own against second stringers. What happens if he's the guy, and all of a sudden, you're dealing with the way first string defenses are? That's a little different story out there.
Well, and the thing about DTR, the only worry that I have is that in his last game, he went 13 of 25. Started out the game very well when he was playing against better players, by the way. But I think there's a frustration about the Browns' inability to put the ball in the end zone, and this has been the case for Stefanski's entire tenure. And we just don't. I don't know whether it's just schematically we're just not good in the red zone. But he started forcing a few things. The touchdown pass that he threw to Watkins, that Watkins kind of turned around and followed the ball, that just went between 2 defenders, I think it was lucky.
Oh, I thought it was going to get picked.
Yep, that's right. That looked like it was a mistake.
And if you do it against first stringers, it probably will get picked, or at least knocked down.
He tried a bomb that thankfully sailed out of bounds. That was also ill-advised, going against the grain to his left, throwing back against his body, and that's a no-no. He's very, very competitive, but somebody's going to have to settle him down a little bit because, when you get to the big time, you do what's given you. You don't, you can't force a ball down the field. We've seen too many quarterbacks in Cleveland try to force a ball down the field when it wasn't there, and that's when turnovers hit. So will the Browns trade for a running back? There's no need to, in my mind, because the people that they would be looking at are people like Clyde Edwards-Helaire from Kansas City, who's a 4.3 yard per carry person last year. Michael Carter, he only 3.5 per carry, and then the higher price Cordarrelle Patterson, who, neither fish nor fowl. He's a good kick returner, and he's let's just say that Demetric Felton would be a really poor man's Cordarrelle Patterson. Cordarrelle was supposed to be a wide receiver, that he was a running back, and then he was a dessert topping. He's been all over the place. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry, but some of those were gadget plays and things of that nature, running him out of the backfield. And don't be surprised, if we run Elijah Moore out of the backfield like we did in preseason. This is something that is an option for the team. So until Jerome Ford gets back, I don't think there's a need to trade for a running back, especially when what's available ain't so good.
Well, and the NFL has kind of devalued the running back. We're really blessed to have somebody like a Nick Chubb on the team where, he's an exception to the running back rule. Think of all the great running backs that the New England Patriots had during their Super Bowl run. You know, I can name them on one hand. Oh, wait, there aren't any. Maybe none of them were spectacular. They were all role players. And, I mean, boy, this team certainly knows role playing running backs. So what happens if Chubb goes down and they're already talking about trying to increase his role and have him on the field in third downs and stuff? I think part of the reason why he's been so successful is because he hasn't had to play those downs, and he's at the end of a game, he's ready to go where other players on the defense are already worn down from 3/4 of a game. Oh, jeez.
I know. That's funny, Ams. Funny stuff. Uh, as far as Simmons in Arizona, the word was that Swiss Army knife thing, they settled him down to one safety position, and he just wasn't good enough. They didn't want a Swiss Army knife. They wanted a safety, and he could not consistently perform at that one position. And again, their specialization in the league, and that's just what happens. The thing I'm going to be looking for most in tomorrow's game is the defense. We've been so inept in recent years, not even just recent years, and not so recent years, controlling the line of scrimmage. I really want to see if this burst by Jim Schwartz's defense is something that's going to be a lasting effort thing, or if Myles Garrett will talk everybody to take plays off. And, is this going to be a real balls to the wall kind of thing? Or is this just an illusion in the preseason? And then when things speed up again and we start getting our tail kicked a little bit, everyone's got to back off. This is what I'm most interested in. This defensive group in this preseason have 13 tackles for loss, 19 quarterback hurries, 4 picks, 2 forced fumbles, and 9 sacks in 3 games. And the tackles for loss are huge, because in this league, you use up a down and you steal 2 yards from somebody, then suddenly, 2nd and 10 is 2nd and 12, 3rd and 7 is 3rd and 9. And you don't have to be really an analytics guy to know that the extra time it takes for a quarterback to throw, the further he has to get it down the field to get a first down, the more time there is for another big play for the defense to be made. And the pressure is something that is one thing. The effort is the thing that I'm really going to be looking for, of whether they're really manhandling the men in front of them. The other thing I'm going to be looking at is our offensive linemen. I really have a fear. Conklin is still in concussion protocol. And, if you're looking at Jedrick Wills, I don't think he's nearly physical enough and nasty enough for a guy his size. You keep your eyes on DeJuan Jones to see what you have there and whether it's serious or not. Yeah, play him more downs.
I think he's the future there, because Conklin's his meter is running out with all of his knee injuries and all the other things that are going on there. The thing I'm more worried about is we're one play away from James Hudson being on the line, which is not good if he even makes a team. I mean, that scares the hell out of me.
The thing that I'm most concerned about is the offense of this team being stagnant. I just injuries are one thing. You can say that Conklin is not going to make it, and that history would bear out that that's likely the case. And Hudson the third might as well be Hudson the 17th. It makes no difference to me. Thurston Howell the third. I don't see James Hudson as being anything that's going to help us out in any meaningful way. Deshaun Watson's going to get about 20 to 25 snaps, and we really need I really would like to see something that is downfield oriented. I want to see a situation where he's lining us up, not Stefanski, that there is communication. I want to see a play where nobody's open and receivers come back to help him. I want to start seeing communication between the quarterback and the receivers, the types of things that he has the legs to buy us time. The question is, will the receivers make a play and be able to get downfield so that we can strike somewhat quickly? Because without quick strike, the Browns are going to be in a lot of trouble again this year because teams will, again, forever be able to shorten the field on them defensively, which has been a problem the last couple of years. And Watson's quote, we keep adding on. We know we're not all the way there yet, and we shouldn't be. Yeah, you should be. The bottom line is the season's beginning, and nobody gives a shit whether you're ready or not. You're going out there. That's like a bullfighter saying, I don't have all my techniques down, but, I think I'm ready to go out there. And the bull just goring him to death. The defenses will be ahead of the offenses. The shorter these preseasons are, the more the teams are protecting star players. There's going to be a bunch of pent-up energy, and that's what the Browns have to go against, and they have to match that energy. And offensively, we're going to have to prove that we have communication skills between our wide receivers and our quarterback and quarterbacks. So, Jordan Wilkins will play and find his way off the roster. John Kelly Jr. will be the same. And I'm not even sure John Kelly Jr. has earned his way back onto a practice squad situation. Jerome Ford is still out with a hamstring. We don't know what the situation is there with Jerome Ford, but it's interesting when they are asking which running back will shine in the situation that Demetric Felton's name is not even mentioned, because I think that's the guy who's going to be the second unit running back until Jerome Ford is fully healed. And some of you are interested because you're grotesque people at what will happen to Cade York. And, the best thing I can tell you is it's not in front of a Cleveland crowd, because if he misses at home, he's going to hear it. And that's not going to help his head out either. At this point, I'm still with Cade York for as long as it's going to need to take until it's obvious that he's just got a problem emotionally and he's costing us games. I was looking at, again, we talked about at the beginning of the show predictions and what predictions, are foolish. It was funny that, Fox went down, Fox Sports, saying, okay, we've gone at it week by week. The Browns are going to lose to the Bengals in Cleveland, all right? And they're going to beat the Steelers at Pittsburgh, all right? I think that's absolutely stupid. I think that's, you're guessing and you're guessing and you're guessing. I mean, the Cleveland Browns have to go out and beat the Cincinnati Bengals because Joe Burrow hasn't done anything in the preseason. And with our new defense, we can scare the holy hell out of him. And anytime you get to him, it's an injury possibility. He is starting out his career. Bengals fans, you'll remember Cook, the quarterback who came out in 1970, if you're an old Bengals fan.
Dan, you are really pulling that.
It's one thing. I mean, he was going to be the sure thing in the league.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if anybody had it going, he had it going on, but he could not stay healthy. It was just a disaster of a career. I think the Browns are going to win week 1. I really do. Going into Pittsburgh, it's a lot harder because it's just playing against somebody on national television in an unfriendly place, and they're going to be allowed to cheap shot us. It's going to be like it always is with the Steelers, and there's no reason why we cannot force Kenny Pickett into mistakes. But George Pickens might have something else to say about that if we are not up to covering their people. The thing in the Bengals game is pressuring the quarterback. And the Bengals don't have a great running game. And if our defensive line is where it's supposed to be, we can stop the running game. But with the Bengals, it's Jamar Chase. It's the chemistry between he and Burrow and the other guys. That they have the receivers who are solid downfield guys.
It's so weird how the Browns have played so well against the Bengals in the Joe Burrow era in general.
Right.
Even in the games they lost, they only lost one, I think. But even then, it's kind of an anomaly that they seem to have his number for some reason, and I don't, hey, I'm not counting on that. All right, I'm not going to DraftKings and setting up $1,000 account just for that. But this is not a plug for DraftKings or any other such this episode of Moohead Sports. No, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird how some teams seem to have certain people, even though the characters change all the time, and I don't know that they've improved their offensive line. That's one thing being here in Columbus. We get a lot of Bengal talk as well. We got a lot of Steeler talk, really, considering, but I guess we're just closer to West Virginia than y'all. So, but yeah, they feel they've really improved their offensive line. They think, that it's just, they kind of feel that this is going to be one of those things. They've been a heck of a good team. So, it'll be interesting. It'll be a heck of a good test. The fact that it's at home, really, if it comes down to a field goal, will the fans be cheering for Cade York if he misses one in the first quarter? And then we're at the end of the game. Are they going to be cheering again, or what's the situation? And Pittsburgh, I'm with you. I think that there's definitely options there to get Kenny Pickett rattled.
Opportunities there if you can get through. And so much of this depends upon the defense. And I'm not going to go week by week. Fox said it was 9-8 record, and I'm not going to argue about that. The bottom line is it's always how you start out, and you can tell if the team is heading in the right direction or if they're heading in the wrong direction. You could see that the Browns were heading in the wrong direction early on last year, and the effort waned. And the effort has to remain solid, and especially through a very, very difficult opening part of our season against divisional opponents. We have to make a statement early. And if we don't do it, we're going to be so far behind the eight ball, we're not going to be able to get back. And I think, from Sports Illustrated was running saying that it was 38.5% chance the Browns would make the playoffs. The difference between 9 and 10 wins is tremendous. If you're putting the Browns in that range, hitting the double digits is a likely way of getting into the playoffs. That it will be what it takes. Whether it will happen or not, I don't know. Because, whereas one will say, yeah, there's 38% chance they're going to make the playoffs, then there's always an NFL Network analyst like Adam Rank who says the Browns are going to finish 6-11. So I don't get into this statistical how many wins is it going to be. I go by the eye test week to week, and I'm going to see if we're playing fast and hard in our first week against Cincinnati. Because if you can't get up for that game at home, what are you doing on the field? What are you doing? I got to get out of here because it's already 4:39. It's been over an hour. Can you believe that? So that everybody, tomorrow is dress rehearsal. It's week 4 of the preseason. That means there will be a halftime show and a post-game show right here with Moohead Radio. So that's something that I want to do just to get into the swing of things before the regular season begins. I'm having a ball here in Northeast Ohio. And hey, if you come out to karaoke bars up in the area, you might even catch me singing. And I try real hard. I'm not that good, but I try, which is all I ask of the Browns. Just try. David Bell, just try as hard as you can. I'm like the David Bell of vocal skills.
That's, well, my mantra is that as an official, before we get ready, you know how teams will kind of do a little huddle and go 1, 2, 3 Browns or 1, 2, 3 team.
Yeah.
Ours is 1, 2, 3. Don't suck. Okay, you don't have to be good. Just don't suck.
Well, the thing is, with singing, it's really interesting because it's not so different than it was when I played tennis. I was not going to run somebody off the court, all right, but I could outthink them, and I could always force them to hit off I would hit behind people constantly to negate their speed advantage. You hit behind them, so I have to keep stopping and changing directions. In singing, it's the song you select because
absolutely.
I mean, if you want to go out there and say, I'm going to wail a Whitney Houston song, you're fucking crazy. I mean, nobody does that.
You don't have that range.
No, that's just it. So, I can go up there and kill Sweet Caroline. I can kill that song and get the people in the bar singing and, do a whole 9 yards, because you find artists, because I have a deeper voice, that, I don't have to push my high register because I don't have one.
My go-to is "I'm a Believer" by the Monkees.
Yeah, right.
It's like everybody gets up and dances and sings, either that or like any Bruce Springsteen song that, Born to Run or something like that, because you really can't do worse than Bruce's voice up there. So, just kind of gravelly, and as the night goes on, you pull out the Springsteen, and your gravelly voice then kind of just sounds better and better.
Everybody's drunk, and nobody knows what Springsteen's saying. A highway's full of broken heroes, or sing Michael McDonald songs. It came from somewhere. Nobody even. Sentimental fool. Every fourth word, and you stumble through the rest of it, and they're all drunk. They don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to try Hall & Oates. I can't hit Daryl Hall's register. It just doesn't work.
I only do one Hall & Oates song, and it's not even a song. Wait a sec here. I don't want to shout the mic out. The woman is wild. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, enough of that. It's a joke I constantly make. It was so funny. I killed rocks. It was months and months ago. I picked up my phone, and the Google Assistant, and I said, "Hey, Google." Yes. It was like, "The woman is wild." I did that. And a 10-second clip of Daryl Hall doing that from the video came up. And I said, I must do that pretty good.
That's pretty good.
So I can
what a way to end the show, man.
I know, man. It's like so stupid. But I guess the whole message is you do what you do well. And you keep within the restrictions, restraints, limitations of what you have. And that's true, Rick. And shiver me timbers, I'm a sailing away. Yeah, Tom Waits songs. I thought I heard a saxophone. I'm drunk on the moon. Yeah, anything by Tom Waits, that'll work. You see, but the second you start, you don't start singing things from, who would be a higher pitched. Oh, Christopher Cross. Don't sing Sailing, or don't sing Stephen Bishop On and On, or else it will go on and on. Don't sing Bread songs, things of these, I'm all out of love without you. Don't even go there. Don't even
Journey.
go there.
Even Steve Perry can't.
Oh God, no. Yeah. Wheel in the Sky, and it's like, what are you, fucking crazy, dude? Or Open Arms, how you can destroy a song like that. Unbelievable. All right, I'm out of here. Hammer time. Thanks for keeping me company. And thanks, everybody in the chat room, for keeping me company, too. And we'll be back with you, tomorrow at halftime and after the game. So it doesn't get any better than that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Moo.